Now, millions of Kenyans went to the polls on Tuesday, and President Uhuru Kenyatta was declared victorious. Results came through late Friday evening, showing a high turnout and a clear margin for Kenyatta, who has called for unity from both sides. CGTN's Voldi Karese takes us through the highlights.
Even before the result was official, the party was underway in Uhuru Kenyatta's hometown, Gatundu, right on his doorstep. And then the Electoral Commission finally confirmed the outcome.
I wish to declare Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta as President-elect and Honorable William Ruto as the Deputy President-elect.
Kenyatta took 54% of the votes cast. Opposition leader Raila Odinga, 44.7%.
The President-elect of Kenya was gracious during his address to the nation, urging his supporters to embrace their brothers and sisters from the opposition as they try and bridge the gap that's emerged during a bruising campaign season.
As with any competition, there shall always be winners and there shall be losers, but we all belong to one great nation called Kenya, and I extend a hand of friendship, I extend a hand of cooperation, I extend a hand of partnership, knowing fully well that this country needs all of us pulling together in order for us to succeed, and Kenyans want us to succeed.
There were more celebrations in downtown Nairobi. But Odinga has refused to accept he lost, and violence broke out in several areas. Here in Nairobi and to the west, including Kisumu and Homa Bay. The trouble's been sporadic so far and localized. Kenyans will be hoping it's quickly contained and that the country can move on. Voldi Karese, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
And now to offer further insights into the outcome of Kenya's election, I'm joined in studio by my guests, Delano Kilu Lilongwe. He's a security expert, Protective and Safety Association of Kenya, and Professor Macharia Monene. He's an analyst and lecturer at the United States International University here in Nairobi. To you both, gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on the program. Delano Kilu, let me start off with you because Kenya has had a very big week here. The election, President Uhuru Kenyatta has secured a second term in office. First of all, give us an indication of your understanding of what went down, how the Kenyan election went down this week.
The Kenyan election went down as planned. It was, and then thank you very much for inviting us to studio. It was a very large operation with 19 million registered voters and a very high voter turnout. And there were plans that were put in place for how the operation of the whole electoral process would be executed. However, what we did see was, of course, one or two hiccups, glitches and hitches within the systems, the vote tallying system, and we also saw one or two anomalies that were raised by the opposition figures, which caused, therefore, a delay in the announcement of the final results, and the final results came out last night to the great relief of most Kenyans.
It was a large operation, as you mentioned. There are 19 million registered voters, the largest in Kenya's history. Weren't those hiccups expected with such a large election?
Absolutely. And there's no nation on planet Earth that will have an election for millions of its citizens without one or two glitches and hitches. And we've seen that across the world, in the US, in the UK, in France, across the board. Whenever you have an elections and there's different variables, then you're always going to have one or two little things. But that does not take away from the overall result, which is the will of the people, and people to exercise their civic right, duties and responsibilities in a calm and peaceful manner. And in this case, we did see Kenyans exercising great restraint. They were very emotive in terms of communication, but their actions spoke louder than their words, even through last night.
Professor Monene.
Yes, it was a very big operation. Roughly 15.2 million people turned out to vote, the largest ever. Roughly 78 to 80% turnout. The operations were wonderful. People could attest. There were a few hitches here, delays here and there. One or two stations did not get their papers on time. The lines maybe were moving too slowly. A few logistical challenges, but otherwise the whole thing was smooth. And that's why the IEBC is being commended for having done a good job. It is towards the end that we had a few challenges, minor questions here and there. The whole thing was, it ran smoothly.
Right. Delano, I just want to come to you because this election itself was quite competitive, particularly between the two leading contenders there, incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta and the leader of the opposition, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. What is it that Kenyans were judging this election upon?
The stakes were very high, Beatrice, as you've correctly said. And the stakes were high, and the two principals are very clearly aware of why. Kenya is about to really springboard into a new level of development opportunities, tapping into its natural resources and interaction with the global community. Kenyans know this. Kenyans are no longer ignorant. They have access to the internet information, and they know that there's everything to win for in the next 5 years. And whoever is going to be on top of that pile is going to be a surefire winner, probably for the next 2 or 3 generations to come, in terms of the legacy that they're going to be able to establish and leave. So it really is an opportune moment for whoever is going to come in, not only as the presidential winner, but as the ruling party for Kenya over the next 5 years. We're at a threshold where things are changing very rapidly. Kenya is taking its place not only in Africa, but around the world as a strategic partner to very many different types of nations. And because of the high level of investment, the role of Kenya in global security, you know, really being the fine line, the fence between Al-Shabaab and other threats from coming into other developed countries or developing countries, then Kenya does play a very key role. So from the place where we sit, we see this as really Kenya's day to shine. And whoever the leader is going to be the prima donna standing in the spotlight.
I want to come back to you, though. Kenya's day to shine democratically, though. Does this election now show that Kenya's democracy has come full circle?
It has come of age, and these elections showed it very clearly. Were there glitches? Yes, there were. But as we noted, a lot of people from outside Kenya came to see how it would go and learn, take some lessons for their own reference wherever they are coming from. So it was exemplary in the procedure and the outcome. It was expected, maybe not by everybody, but some of us expected that the outcome would be what it was.
But this election as well, there were a few new technologies that were incorporated into it, particularly the fact that the technology, I think not the manual tallying, went really well. That is a show.
No, actually, that's part of the improvement, use of the technology. We remember how the technology came in. It was a safeguard initially, the biometric, when they started saying put it in. And then the courts also helped when they said that the votes should be counted where they were cast and then made public, because that was the key thing. Cast your votes in that station, count them, make it public, not just at the station, but throughout the country, so that we saw people following, point by point everywhere, such that by the end it was not questionable as to who won or did not win where. So that in itself has elevated Kenya's electoral system, I don't say a notch higher, about 3 notches high, because many other countries are not at that level. And given the big number of voters and the positions being vied for, it was exemplary. So Kenya's democracy has really moved up in that regard.
All right, the use of technology in Kenya's election, that was a first. And of course, a lot of African countries are trying to make themselves a technological hub, and we know a few countries along the region. This has been a plus for the continent, though.
It has been a plus for the continent. If you wanted to describe the Kenyan elections 2017, you can in 3 words: backup, backup, backup. And the IEBC did go out of its way and really rescued the whole operation by simply putting in place redundancy across the systems, across the people, across the processes. And whenever there was a challenge raised, they would then fall into a backup position and still have an answer for Kenyans. And Kenyans want answers very quickly whenever there's an elections. So African countries can learn from this by creating backup instances and backup processes to any kind of contested public seat in a future election. Apart from that, for some of us who are experts in these areas, we still feel that there is a few notches higher that we can go as a nation in terms of technology. And one of the things that the government of Kenya should do immediately is harness the energy and the creativity of its youthful population to actually go in and say, can we ramp this up? And can we take the next 4 years to even provide a better system for 2022?
Right. Professor Macharia, I want to get your view, because you have mentioned one thing, Delano, about the younger population here. And we did see quite a number of young new voters coming in this time. I understand about 5 million or thereabouts. Yeah. New voters, young voters joined the electoral system this time. What impact did that have, though, on the overall electioneering in Kenya?
I think it helped Uhuru to win, because there were, everywhere you went, the people who have just turned 18 were on the line. And in some places, 60% of the people waiting to vote were below 35. In fact, they are mostly in their 20s, which was very encouraging, actually. Because when I say, hey, you are here, yeah, I'm voting. So I said, no, that is good. Because that means that the future of the country is in safe hands. Because they are taking the matter very seriously. And they are doing what needs to be done. And they are not being swayed one way or the other against their perceived interests. So the fact that this generation came out in a big way is also a message to politicians. 2022, start cultivating those who are in standard 8 because they'll be voters in 5 years' time. And these are the ones who are going to decide, because they've been shown. Even the number of people who have been elected, the youthful people, is also high. And some of them are celebrities. So when they say, oh, so-and-so got elected, yeah, I too can get elected. So they get involved more. So that is another dimension to the exemplary nature of this particular election, which means the rest of the world, if not Africa alone, is also watching how do they do it. We can also do it. So I think this election has just proven that Kenya can be the pace setter in the world.
All right, gentlemen, when we return from the break, we are going to be looking at what President Uhuru Kenyatta will be delivering for the country in his next 5 years. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll have more insights into what comes next after Kenya's successful elections. To stay with us.